Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Through the Briars podcast. This is your host, Christian Kosovis. It's good to be back. We're on episode 2 today. And as you can see, I have a semi setup. It's not perfect. It's still going to get evaluated and reconstructed. But for the moment, it is doing the job, which I want is to have just decent video quality, decent recording, just so I can get the value out to you guys. That is the most important thing at the end of the day for me. And as the journey progresses, I will upgrade systems and cameras and lighting and recording. But for the moment, I just want to be able to consistently get my message out there to you guys. Because at the end of the day, you guys are here for the quality of the content and not for the quality of the camera, which hopefully will be good one day, but we'll get there. Small steps. So the topic that I want to touch on today is going to be responsibility, and there's going to be a few layers underneath that. I'm going to tie the responsibility with sacrifice because I think responsibility and sacrifice, they are interconnected and one requires the other. You need to sacrifice something for responsibility, and to take on responsibility requires sacrifice. And those things, again, like you don't get one without the other. It is a two-man deal, two-man job, two peas in a pod, whatever you'd like to call it. And that synthesis does not work when there's no team effort between the two. And as I'm looking down here, I don't want you guys to worry about that. I'm not reading off a script or anything. I just have a few bullet points here so that I can stay on track and not ramble too long on each point. But the first bullet point that I want to get into with responsibility is responsibility and what it means to take it. So with responsibility, often we regard responsibility as something bad, and it's always like, oh, I have to take responsibility for my actions. I have to take responsibility for my work or for my family or for my friends, for my relationships, whatever it may be. And the way that it's being portrayed now is very negative, and that's wrong. Because, like I said before, responsibility is a fundamental characteristic that we must nurture and that you need to have some sort of control and mastery over at some point in your life. Preferably the earlier the better. That's why if you're young and you're watching this, some of my best advice is to develop and to understand the principles and the ethos of sacrifice and responsibility. To take responsibility, what that means essentially is you take everything in your life, the good things that have happened to you, the bad things that have happened to you, the evil that you've gone out and done, your sins, your temptations, your trauma, all your wins, all your losses, everything that you take, you need to go out of your way to say, okay, this is all mine. I am responsible for all of this. And the best thing that I can do is to pick every single thing up together. Because if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to pick and choose what I want to carry with me, the things that you leave behind will create a future pitfall that you will fall into because they become problems that are unaddressed, which is another topic I'm going to get into another podcast. But I want to also talk about how sacrifice is the biggest and the deepest form of responsibility. So when you choose to carry the weight and the capacity of your own evil and your goods and your bads, your wins and your losses, you're effectively taking the responsibility of yourself, the responsibility towards yourself and the responsibility of others and putting it together. So there's a Russian author, which I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with. If not, that's fine. But Fyodor Dostoevsky is a genius, incredible, absolutely mind-blowing literary writer. The quality of his work is 1 to none, in my opinion. And for those who know him, he has a quote, and he says that you are not only responsible for the sins that you do, but for the sins of everybody else as well. Or you are not only responsible for your own problems, but for the problems of everyone else as well. Essentially, it is something along the lines of that. Essentially, what he's getting at is that you are responsible for all the bad things that are happening around you and to others, and to the bad things that happen to yourself. Because if you were a better person and you were more integrated and more complete, then the people around you would be better and would probably be less worse than they are. And if that hurts, it should, because it's something that we all need to be aware of. That, yes, we all love to blame and point at others and look at what they're doing wrong instead of what we're doing wrong. I'm a victim of that too. But it is more important to understand the necessity of the situation, which is, if you can fix yourself and you can become that bastion of hope and that beacon of light for other people, where you are fully integrated, fully understanding, fully at service, and fully ready for sacrifice at any moment to take on responsibility, you become that campfire for other people, and you help save them, you help warm them up as well. And in that, they see your example that you're setting, and they will hopefully go on and take the same one as well. And it is much more effective to do that, to be the living example, than to go out of your way and try to convince. And that's not to completely disregard convincing and trying to sit down and talk with people either, because sometimes people need a wake-up call, and they might need multiple chats on the same thing. And perhaps the more understanding, the more integrated you become, the more times you say it, perhaps one time, the third time maybe that you say it, or the fourth or the 10th or the 20th time, you finally understand it so well within yourself that you can articulate it in a way that the other person understands, and it hits them. And then that realization happens, the spark begins, and the transformation starts. Okay. Life is, I want you to think of this. This is going to tie into all the art and the literary and the symbolic that I want to talk about in all my videos too. But just a really easy one to remember: sacrifice and responsibility is tied in with the symbol of a phoenix, more so sacrifice, because in order to sacrifice, you have to give up something of great value to get something of equal value in return. And as a phoenix rises from its own ashes, so too do you when you sacrifice something that you love, or you sacrifice part of yourself to be reborn and transcend in a way greater than before. And I think the phoenix is really powerful to represent that. And there is plenty. I mean, every single bit of art that we have nowadays establishes that as a character more often than not. It's the character who finally realizes that he has to sacrifice the thing most important to him to be aware of something greater. I mean, this is the exact same example in the Old Testament of the Bible with Abraham, where he was living a comfortable life and things were great, much like lives that we live now. And God says to him, go out and do something. And he tells him to go to the mountain and to sacrifice Isaac, his son. And of course, we know that Isaac does not end up getting sacrificed, but he goes out and he goes to offer up the thing that is most valuable to him. And in that offering, he's presented with a new title and with a new adventure for his life. A title which is the father of faith, Abraham, the father of faith, which means that in this sacrifice, he did something so great and so big that he is not even remotely the same person he was before. He's a completely new and different person. And each time you skip out on a sacrifice in life, a really big one, and no doubt it is difficult and it sucks sometimes, but every time you skip out on a sacrifice, you skip out on a new version of yourself that gets a new adventure and a new direction and orientation for life. And usually when you are sacrificing something of value for something in return, that is going to orient you in the right way. But with that, you cannot orient yourself. You cannot orient yourself thinking that I'm going to sacrifice something so I can get something in return, because then it becomes about what I can get. It becomes about me, and it becomes pride. It needs to be about the sacrifice for the transcendence of your character and your soul, and for the purpose of something greater and for the community around you. Because human beings are social and communal creatures, and we need to fix ourselves for the sake of the people around us. You are only as strong as your weakest link. So in your family, if you have one person or two people who are really strong and you have other people who aren't as strong, which is okay, because people are at different steps at their life, different progressions, and that is completely okay. But the weakest person in the family, everyone is eventually going to succumb to, because the weakest link is the broken one, and that one will shatter the rest of the chain and the hierarchy of the family. So being able to understand how sacrifice is the deepest form of responsibility is so important because you're not doing things for you. When you live a life doing things just for yourself, you become hedonistic and you become bitter, and you start to see everyone as a means to your own end, which is exactly how psychopaths operate, by the way, clinically and psychologically. So that's a really fundamental and important truth for you to understand about the veracity and the importance of sacrifice and responsibility. And leading on from that is understanding your capacity for darkness and being able to restrain it. So this is something that a lot of people will say kind of in a cringe sort of way, which I'm sure you guys have seen on TikTok, and the people who make the whole being strong thing and integrating your dark side and to like be a monster really corny and really cringe, and they say it in a non-helpful way. Carl Jung said a quote, which I have here, so I'm going to read it to you. It says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Now, a lot of Jungian ideas are the integration of the shadow, and we see that as trying to become one with your darkness. And when you read that at a certain level, it doesn't sound very helpful. And if you were to read it at surface level, it's not. But the deeper layer to that, bringing forth the unconscious, is the things that you're not currently aware of. And if you're not currently aware of certain sins, that means you are steeped so deeply and so far in a state of sin that you can't see what's good, you can't see what's bad, and you think the way you're living is normal. And it becomes almost, in a sense, because of that lack of responsibility, it becomes a form of willful blindness and ignorance. And you might say, well, how can I be ignorant if I don't know? And I would say that if you have no desire to look for your own capacity for darkness, look at the things that you're doing wrong, you are being ignorant to the amount of evil you can commit. I mean, we see things all the time, and if you can't see yourself doing a bad deed or becoming a bad person, then you are flawed, because a fact about life is we see really bad people and we judge them, and no doubt I'm the same. But if you see a murderer, for example, I want you to play a game with yourself. If you see a murderer and you can't think to yourself, I want you to actually sit down and play this, by the way, in your spare time. Think to yourself, what would it take for me personally to get to the level and to commit the same atrocity that they committed? What you'll find when you play that game is that it'll actually take you not much effort at all. And when I did that with myself, I was actually quite scared, because I understood that if left unchecked and if I were to fall into the wrong path and certain principles were in place, I could very easily and capably be an agent of destruction. And that is not me trying to promote that as a good thing. It is not. But being aware and understanding that you are not better than someone else because you're not a murderer. You still have the capacity for that, and that capacity is dangerous. And if you see that evil and you understand that you have a capacity to it given the right circumstances, then you're no different to the person who gave in. And that's might sound a little bit confusing, but the willingness to go through the act is one thing, but having the propensity for the same tendencies is a problem. Okay, so to integrate the shadow and to bring forth the unconscious conscious is, again, the understanding of your own dark and evil nature, the things that tempt you, your sins, the things that infuriate you. And you need to integrate that. When I say integrate, I mean understand. So when you can understand that, you understand that it is a part of you. Okay, the darkness, we bear that. That is our responsibility. It is a part of us, and it's not something that we can just push a blind eye to and forget about. So in that, bring the unconscious conscious, you bring that forward, and when you're unaware of that, when you're unaware of the bad things that dictate your motives and your actions, that becomes the controlling marionette of your life. Okay? And for me, for a long time, I could never, ever understand why I would fall into the same situations and why I was prone to the same type of anger and darkness every single time. And that was because I never knew what it was. I was just angry and I never knew what it was. And understanding that is the first step to integration. Because when you understand the beast, then you can tame it. Okay? Now, part of the integration for Jung was that when you know what you're capable of, you need to learn to cultivate it in a very specific way, but to keep it on a very, very strong coil. So what that means is that in life, for example, in relationships, I'm going to use this probably the best example. Women want a man who can protect them. And to protect means more than just to keep the monsters away. There is so much more under the umbrella of protection, but for the sake of that, I need to use that example specifically. Protection from the monsters is that to be able to ward off a monster, you need to be a monster yourself to a degree, because you need to have that and understand that capacity for aggression. So it's kind of like the example in The Beauty and the Beast, where Gaston, I believe, I haven't seen it in a long time. I believe the king, the guy, his name is Gaston. He is basically the worst possible man you can be, which is a narcissistic tyrant. And he's trying to force the girl to fall in love with him. And then there's Beast, who is a beast and a monster, but he learns to tame that aggression. And women can see that because they know that a man can and should be able to, when necessary, be able to use that darkness. I use the term darkness very loosely. They should be able to use that aggression in a way that is armed for protection to ward off the other monsters. But it is not a default state of being. It should be a weapon that you bust out in a time of emergency where you are called to defend. Now, part of that understanding is not letting that control you, because it is so incredibly easy to let that control you. Because there may be a time in life, for example, maybe you're getting robbed, or somebody's going to jump you, or somebody's pressing up towards you and your girlfriend or your wife. And you need to be able to step in, and that aggression needs to take place there. That if the situation does escalate, the first thing should be de-escalating the situation. But if it escalates, you need to have that capacity, and you need to understand how far you can go. It's exactly, I know this might be a funny example, but it falls under the same thing. Batman is the perfect representation of that. Batman, which I'm sure I don't need to explain the origin story. Everyone knows who Batman is and what's happened to him. But Batman has fully integrated the darkness within him, and he orders that with his moral code, and he doesn't let that darkness to overcome him and to take him into the grave. All right? Because he knows for a fact that if he kills one person, if Batman kills one person, he will never recover, and he will forever fall into that pit and darkness, and he will be no better than the criminals that he beats up and he puts away. And he says himself, the difference between me and them is I have a code and they don't. So there is an integration and an understanding on his part where he knows and he recognizes that I need to have this capacity for aggression and protection so that I can protect those that I care about, and the city and the people and whatever, and his community. And if he doesn't have that, how's he going to be able to do what he does? Okay, but again, like, this is something, and I can't stress this enough. This is something that can very easily be taken the wrong way and misunderstood. And people, please, I want you to think deeper about what I'm saying, because I'm not saying that you need to go out there and try force yourself to be dark and then try to play good. You need to be good and not be that darkness, but you need to understand that it has its purpose in certain situations. And understanding that and controlling that and taming that is useful to you and to those around you for the sake of the protection of the community and for yourself. Now, moving on from that. Next, the burden of responsibility versus the voluntary choice of responsibility. So, in life, an undeniable and indisputable fact is You will either have a responsibility you don't like dropped onto your shoulders if you don't choose to take responsibility, or you can voluntarily choose the weight that you want to bear. And there is a vast distinction between those two things. Voluntary choosing the weight that you want to bear is important beyond measure. You know why? Because you need to be able to want to go and do something yourself. It should be invitational. And that comes, of course, from some maturity and from some understanding. But people, often than not, they let life happen to them and they don't attack life in certain situations. And part of the attack, and I don't mean attack in a violent way, but going head on, as Abraham did when he went head on and did as he was told, and he went for that responsibility and for that sacrifice. Even people who go through trauma and everything, one of the best ways to get over that is to voluntarily look at and go to the thing that hurts you and to look at it. But you have to voluntarily want to do that. If someone forces you to do that, it's not going to work. But then again, you can't sit back forever and not do it. You do need to take a little bit of courage, and you need to go, and you need to choose it. You have to choose it. There is no other way around it. There's no other way around it. And so often than not, like I was saying before, the people, they let life fall onto their shoulders. There's no agency of responsibility for them. And they get all these bad things happening to them. And because they don't have responsibility for themselves, for life, for their problems, for everything, when bad things happen, they crumble and they crack it because they've just let it fall on them. They haven't chosen it. When you don't choose something and something heavy falls on you, well, it sucks and no one likes it. And it's heavy. And no doubt it should be. And if you're finding yourself in a situation in life, whether you're young or old, where things are happening to you and they're falling on you and you hate it repeatedly and it's hard and it's heavy, you need to ask yourself, well, have I voluntarily chosen responsibility? And you might have chosen that in certain aspects of your life, but it needs to be a full integration, and a full integration comes from a full understanding of yourself. And in that capacity, in that search, you should sit and ask yourself, sit on the edge of your bed one day, and you need to ask yourself, what is one thing? You need to genuinely ask, though. You can't half-ass this. You need to genuinely seek in order to understand. Say to yourself, what is one thing or two things that I'm doing right now that's stupid and making people not like me and making me useless? And you'll get an answer really, really quick. It's really scary. Okay, because you can't understand yourself if there's no conviction. And for the conviction, you need to ask and you need to seek. You don't ask, you don't seek. If you just don't care and you just let life unfold, then, well, it's going to be hard and it's going to suck. Okay, voluntarily understanding and choosing your responsibility, holding on to that, and understanding that this is the way it's meant to be. I do this and this and this, these good things, these bad things, and this is a result of whatever good or bad thing that I do. You will go so much further. You will go so much further by voluntarily choosing that responsibility. A quick example. So in Frankenstein, in the book, or if you've only seen the new movie, the new movie's great, by the way, but nothing beats the book. Victor Frankenstein, the doctor who makes the monster. By the way, for those who don't know, Frankenstein is not the monster. Well, Frankenstein technically is the monster, but he's not the monster, the monster that's being created. Victor Frankenstein is the perfect example of somebody who does not take responsibility for their actions. He creates the monster. He wants to play God and be God. He creates this being. He wants the power and the authority that God has, but he doesn't want God's heart. He doesn't want the agency of care, and he doesn't want the responsibility of nurture. And in that, well, he produces a monster and then he abandons it. And then the monster comes back with vengeance because, I mean, like, why wouldn't it? You abandoned it. You just decided to do something to such a degree as creating life, trying to be equal to God, and then you abandon it. What do you think is going to happen? And that is a good example of the people who do all these things in life. They do these grand things and these big things, and they refuse to take responsibility. It's like, well, have a look around you. You need to take that responsibility for yourself, for the other people around you. And that leads perfectly into the next one. If you have no responsibility, you have no purpose. And what do I mean by that? Purpose has obviously been something that's debatable and being debated since the dawn of time. What is purpose? Do we have purpose? Are we made with purpose? Do we find our purpose? It's a hard one to answer, but part of purpose is responsibility, because you will find the purpose in your life. You'll find the purpose of your life in the weight of the responsibility that you wish to carry. Because when you voluntarily accept that responsibility, you, by definition, are sent on the adventure of life, which happened to Abraham, which happens in every movie, every adventure movie, where the person at the start of the film finds something bad at the start, and then he gets forced onto this journey to go find someone or recover something or whatever kind of adventure to kill the villain. And that becomes his responsibility, and that gives him the perfect life. It's right there in front of you in movies and in everything. It's explaining to you that by taking responsibility, you'll have lots of ups and downs. You'll have very, very low lows and very high highs. But in that, when you're looking back at the end of the movie, when they've succeeded and they look back and they are showered in applause and virtue and gratitude by their community, and they look around and they understand that, hey, all of that sucked majorly in the moment, but that gave me the best adventure of life I've ever had. And you need adventure and multiple adventures in life. You can't operate and walk around thinking that, oh, I have to do this, and letting that responsibility just fall on top of you, because people end up living lives they're not happy with when they take responsibility as a burden. When you think of things as a burden, no doubt it becomes a burden. You need to voluntarily accept that. There's no way out of life. You're fully in it. You're alive. You're breathing right now. Right now, as you're watching this, you are in life 100%. Just give it the best you got. And it's hard, and no doubt it sucks sometimes, and it can make you bitter and resentful, but you need to rise above that, understanding this whole concept of responsibility. You want a good way to start? This is going to lead into the final thing. Start taking responsibility. How you can go about doing that? Start small and build up. Like I said before, think about all the bad things that you do or you have done, or what draws you to commit atrocities. Think about the things that anger you and bother you. That's a great way to start of the integration of the shadow. The next thing that you can do to start taking responsibility is look around you and the state that you're existing in. And everyone who hears this is probably going to roll their eyes and be like, well, this is just a load of crap, and everyone says this, but it's not true. And it's like, yeah, it is. I mean, the state around you is a reflection of you inside and the people around you. Responsibility is getting up and making your bed every day and keeping your space tidy. And if you cannot keep your space tidy, you will never be able to live the life that you want to live. Because if you can't keep something as trivial as your bedroom, that is your space. You occupy and own that space. If you cannot keep that in order, how much order do you think you're going to be able to establish later in the future? I can guarantee it's going to be none. And if you're looking at your life right now and you're not happy, and you might not be in the best shape of your life, you might not have many friends, you might not have a relationship, things aren't seeming to go your way with work, it's just problem after problem. Take a look around you and think, how much responsibility am I actually taking on? Look at the people around you and say, are they taking on more responsibility than me? Am I being lazy and not helping? And we all fall victim to this, of course. And that's why it is so important for the peace of a friend group, of a household, whatever it may be, for the peace and the prosperity of that community needs to be rooted in sacrifice and responsibility. It is an undeniable truth. You can't argue against that. If you say you're going to go to the gym a few times a week, go to the gym. Ask someone for help. Do it. Are you going to sit there and let your body rot away forever? Are you going to sit there and doom scroll all day on your phone and not try pick up a book and educate yourself and try be more useful for the people around you when you are in optimal shape, not to mention all the benefits that it has for your mental health and everything, no doubt, but just the benefits in general of being able to serve people better, of understanding yourself, acquiring discipline, acquiring all of these virtues. It's all in taking responsibility. You don't get that without responsibility. You need to just get up and do it. And that's the thing. And if you don't like hearing it from people, and if people are around you telling you, you need to change this and you need to fix this, and your focus is either firing back at what they need to do and not humbly accepting that and being like, yes, okay, well, if a few people have been saying this to me, then maybe something is wrong. Maybe I am being the problem and I need to get up and change. You can't just think that when you get older and when your life starts getting serious that it's all going to fall into place, because it'll fall apart before it falls into place if you are living in this state that you are now. I cannot stress that enough. Fix your room before you try to fix the people around you. Fix your room, fix your life, fix your health. Learn, read, expand your knowledge. Again, like I said before, the basis of human connection in life is we are social animals. We are the most social creatures on the earth. We thrive from community. And when our community, especially when a household is disconnected and everyone is split up and is far away from each other and can't connect and they can't understand their own darkness and how it's affecting everyone else, and they refuse to face it, what do you think the household is going to end up like? It's going to look shit. It's going to be a physical manifestation of the internal that is not yet integrated. It's as simple as that. Why are we overcomplicating it and letting our feelings of that get in the way? Like, I understand that it's okay to be sad and it's okay to be angry, but staying like that and staying useless is not helpful to the people around you. Do you want to be useful to the people around you? If the answer to that is yes, you have a job to do. You're not called to life to live an easy life. You are called to take up responsibility, and you are called to be better and to do better. It's not meant to be easy. You have something important to do. You have a world and a society and a community to contribute to. And if you are contributing to that, other people will contribute to that. And when everyone's contributing, wow, the world flourishes. Who would have thought that? It's so simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it is very simple. So please, if you're somebody who is struggling big time with all of this stuff, read a book, read some classical literature, try to understand, read from the great minds of the past. They understand all of this better than anyone else. They will help catalyze that attention and for you, the attention of what's wrong, and they'll catalyze the awareness of darkness, which then you can work on and integrate. Talk to somebody, ask someone, clean up the space around you, take pride in the area that you live in and the environment that you're existing in all the time. Okay, because if you're just going through the motions of the days and you're getting up and you're working and you're coming back and that's it, and you're not doing any of the work to try and master yourself or to try and be better for the people around you, to be of service, what is it all for? What is it all for? How can you be a good person if you can't even see the good and bad person within you? And that's hard, because normally when we take these deep dives into into our consciousness and we see all that darkness, it repels people because all they do is avoid. They don't want to spend time and understand. It scares them, and fair enough. Maybe you've done something really bad in life. Well, you should be scared and you should understand that. But you can't avoid it. You cannot outrun it. Make the sacrifice your ego. Your ego is what wants you to stay the same and what wants you to think you're right and everyone else is wrong and that you're a victim. And that victim mindset of, oh, like, I'm trying to work through it, but it's too hard and I can't do it and you don't understand. How about you just get up and just do it? How about you just get up and do it? And yes, sometimes it's easier said than done, but you can't sit there trying to make that excuse for yourself and wallowing in it and saying, well, I'm trying, because I guarantee you, if you really ask yourself, am I trying? Am I really doing the best that I can? Am I trying every day to stay in great physical shape, to read and exercise my mind? Am I trying to keep the space around me clean? Am I trying to serve at least one other person every single day? Am I going through my days with love and humility and respect and trying to better every single person around me and myself? Am I putting some plan and forethought into my future, or am I being delusional and being wrapped up in hedonism and only focusing on what I can benefit from right now because I want it now? Which are you doing? You need to understand that. And it sucks and it's not fair. And we live in a world that is not fair sometimes. But you need that. That is your warning. It is the megaphone that is going off in your brain that is saying to you, hey, stop, sit, think with yourself. Sit with yourself and think. Understand, be better, move on, and adapt. You have to adapt. And when you can understand all these things and you take it on, you say, okay, everything here that I do right and wrong, what I need to do, what I can do to be better and to help those around me. You pick all that up and you say, I'm going to carry this because this is mine. This is my responsibility. This is nobody else's responsibility. That is when change begins. And that is actually, funnily enough, life will start falling into place for you. That doesn't mean you're going to avoid suffering and things are always going to go your way. Things are going to suck too. But what is the alternative? You sit there and you sit in the filth of your mind and the external world and you let it plague and rot away your soul. How is decay any better than beauty? Well, actually, to be fair, there is some beauty in decay, but that is a conversation for another thing. But for the specific example of this, it's night and day. It's just, you have to just get up and do it. You just have to get up and do it, whether you want to or not. You might have lived a very long and hard life. You might have worked like a dog all your life. And yes, that is fair enough. And you may be very tired, and that is understandable. But the bigger reason as to why you're tired is because you've let all these years of you've had all these years, and it might be 10, 20, 30, 40 years of you letting burdens fall on you, and you don't pick them up. You don't take responsibility for them. You can't let your soul and yourself rot away while you're letting life happen to you. You need to take it and push it. And this mirrors almost, in a way, Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain. It depends which interpretation you want to look at it from, but if Sisyphus was pushing that boulder up the mountain and he stopped and he let the burden fall on him, that rock would crush him to the bottom of the hill and he would be dead. And when you let burden fall on you, internally you are dead. Spiritually you are dead. But Sisyphus takes that responsibility, even though he can't see the top, even though he doesn't know when he's going to get to the top, even though he's tired and the weight of the boulder is insurmountable, he is still pushing the boulder up the mountain. He is taking small steps every day. And in 1 year, all it takes is like 3 to 6 months to get your life on track. It's so quick, and people can help you do that. Let people help you do that. Take that responsibility. Bring the unconscious conscious. Understand it. Integrate it. Understand your capacity for darkness and fix it. Be aware of it. Put it on a leash. And rise above it. Have some sort of moral order. And find a way to move through life that doesn't take away the joy of it. That is what it means to take responsibility and how you can start. Get your life in order so you're not useless to the people around you. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there for today because that was, I think, a good place to finish on. And again, with responsibility and sacrifice, these are two things that are incredibly difficult. These are two things that you're going to be pursuing your entire life. It's not a one-time thing. People think with good things and with virtue and with sacrifice, you do it once and you call it a day and you say, yep, I've done it. I've done my part. It's all over. I don't need to do anything else. Wrong. You have a responsibility to actively choose sacrifice and responsibility every single day of your life. Every single second, every choice you make, every word you say, every action you do, every thought you have, all of that is a responsibility to keep that in check and in some sort of moral and ethical order that benefits you and benefits the people around you. So, take on some responsibility. When you leave this podcast, see if it's late in the day or if it's early. See if there's one thing you can do today that will make you better than you were yesterday. Don't compete to where someone else is. Compete to where you are and what you can do. Get in shape. Fix your room. Fix your space. Mend broken relationships. Take ability. Shatter your ego. You need that ego death so you can transform. Because Carl Jung also says that the precursor to the savior is the fool. Okay, you need to be a fool. You need to be humble. You need to look stupid to become the successor. Okay, and there's plenty of characters in fiction that are able to show you that as well. And I'm sure there's role models in your life too. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the second episode of the podcast. I appreciate and thank all of you for watching. It's really cool that we've got the video now. So I'm glad to keep working on this and see how it goes from there. Now, just really quickly with all of that, I want you to understand that when I say all of these things, it may seem harsh or it may seem a bit blunt, but a lot of you need that bluntness in your life and you need the people to bring it to your attention because that is one of the greatest forms of love. And even if I may not sound like I am, I say all these things with love because I want everyone to be the best version of themselves they can be, not just for them, but for the people around them, because that is in turn how we shape the world around us into a better place. And we've forgotten that as a society, as the time's gone on. So, find yourself, work on yourself, take responsibility and sacrifice so that you become a completely new person as Abraham himself did in the Old Testament and be better. Okay. Anyway, thank you for joining me on the second episode of the podcast, and I will see you guys next week for the third episode. Love.